Welcome back. You stay on to Signature Morning on Signature TV. It is time for us to bring you another interesting topic. We'll be discussing 2025 Nigeria budget of restoration, or what? What do you think? Don't forget you can always follow us on all our social media platforms to drop your comments and join the conversation. On YouTube, we are live 24/7 on Signature TV and other platforms at Signature TV News. And to discuss this is Dr. Stanislaus Ukeje. He's an economist and a policy scholar. Good morning and welcome, Doc.
Thank you very much, Belinda.
Good morning.
What's your name?
My name is Belinda, of course. It is in the spirit of Christmas. I hope you're bubbling for the season.
Well, fine. So before we even go into what we want to discuss, tell me, how has your plan for Christmas been? Is it last year and this year, do you think is the same when it comes to economic factors?
Say that again.
I mean, for Christmas, your plan for Christmas, how has it been between last year and this year? Which is better? This is just on the lighter note. I just want to see your preparation for Christmas.
Well, maybe for a young person like you, you still have prospects for Christmas. You know what it used to be. The chances are not there now because, it's a fixed festival. If by January you are down, by March you are further down, by September you are down and sick, you can't be preparing for Christmas. You only pray that you live through it. So,
All right.
for me, I think that's how it is.
Okay.
All right, let's just jump into our discussion this morning, talking about the 2025 budget. But I just want to ask you personally, what are those personal priorities, that are relevant to you that are outlined in this 2025 budget, and how do you think the budget can address, the current economic challenges in Nigeria right now?
Well, if you look at an economy as households, you could talk about the community or the public household. Then you have the private household, Belinda's household, Nigeria household. In the private household, a lot of challenges, and it's been multiplying. Your assets, the assets you have, perhaps at the household level, training. You are trained as an engineer, but you don't have a job. Because that engineering training is an asset. Maybe you inherited a generator from your parents, but you cannot fuel it. It's a redundant asset. You have a car, the tire is bad. The cost of replacing the tire is equivalent in nominal terms with the cost of buying the tire or buying the car when you bought it. The car is redundant. You have a congenital health problem. The drugs you used to buy at X is now costing 15X. If you are lucky to have income, your income is fixed. So it doesn't seem to make sense. Of course, worst of all, many of the household consumptions come from abroad, where income levels are higher. For instance, if you are a body painter in the United States, your hourly wage could be something like $50. For luxury cars like BMW, Lexus, maybe you should take them 2 hours to paint a vehicle. So they pay $50 per hour. If you don't do it in 2 hours, you lose money. Now, when you import that car into Nigeria, in addition to the cost of painting and other things, the people who are going to consume it here, their incomes are low in relation to dollar. For instance, the minimum wage in Nigeria is escalated to 70,000 naira.
Yes.
Good. But that's equivalent to $53. So you can't afford, anytime you consume imported goods, you are importing inflation. So for the private household, there are difficulties. Many people cannot pay their rent if they are living in rented houses. those who have their own houses cannot pay the ground rent, which the government is now charging, which is higher, and they can't move out of their house to rent because the cost of renting is also higher. A lot of things are, bad for the private household. For the public household, is I can say people are dismayed. You find that you have an engineer in Nigeria, he has never worked, on any project. So when the government is saying we want to hire engineers, they say they want somebody with 15 years experience. So he doesn't have that experience. Worst, he doesn't have a connection with the people making the decision. So they hire people from Middle East as engineers. A bridge like the one at Port Harcourt Expressway that collapsed, it's taking 2 years, almost over a year now to repair it. Each time I pass there, I see only 2 Arab engineers. They'll be smoking, and it's not complete yet. So the public household is not helping matters, because what the public household ought to do is to identify the bottlenecks and the constraints on the economy and remove them. But if you cannot get from let's say Nkerefi to Enugu on a good road, and somebody is telling you that the government is building coastal road from Lagos to Calabar, you are going to say, how will I get there? Because I have to get to Enugu first before going to Lagos. If you have a university that has maybe a department, the university has maybe 11 lecturers, the best of them is a professor who has never done anything great because there's no opportunity. The students don't learn anything. You have a mechanical engineering workshop that has no equipment. The government does not consult the university. For instance, the tax committee did not have one university represented, but the universities are teaching fiscal policy. If you had gone to University of Ibadan or University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Ahmadu Bello, and say, we want you to nominate somebody on this committee, the Vice Chancellor will ask the Department of Economics to nominate somebody. And when he gets there, he is going to bring in current intelligence into the transaction. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if in Enugu State, for instance, 70% of the people are poor in terms of income, and you exclude them from taxation, what do you expect Enugu State to do? You must live on the people you have. If you have a majority of poor people, no matter what they pay, it is their contribution and then their claim on the statehood. Then the government should lower its expenditure for the time being. But the government is escalating expenditure and borrowing from abroad. So
yeah, let's even take a little bit look of 2024 budget, which is just coming to an end, which it was called Budget of Renewed Hope. And what they budgeted for last year to this year was 27.5 trillion naira. And this year, President has gone ahead to say he's going for 47.90 trillion naira. Now, looking at last year to this point, do you think that we've really gotten a renewed hope? And because we've still had to borrow and borrow and borrow, do you think it's still going to be the same case for 2025?
Well, it's just like somebody who is drunk and you're asking him to stop. He says no, he wants to drink more so that he will abolish the impact of the alcohol. It doesn't make sense. That's what I'm telling you. No household now, assuming you are a property owner and you have somebody who is living in your house who cannot pay, you don't ask the person to continue to live. You may ask the person, I'm giving you 1 year to look for where you can pay. Don't pay for this coming year. Go. That's a way of settling matters. But if somebody is owing you and you increase the rent, are you expecting him to kill himself? So it doesn't make all those names, budget of this and that.
Yes.
It doesn't summarize what is in the budget, because if people have no hope, you cannot tell them you are restoring hope. If a vehicle has failed brake, you ask people to put a wedge to stop it from rolling. It needs to stop, not escalating the speed.
So what do you are an economist, of course.
Yes.
So what do you think the government mean by budget of restoration for this 2025 budget? And in what way does the budget, do you think it aims to, restore economic stability and growth for the nation?
I'm not part of them, but I do know that when Buhari was in power or in office, and Emefiele was governor of Central Bank, there were complaints that government was borrowing much. The current regime, Tinubu, at that time, his own comment was that you don't need to stop spending, that you need to keep spending until you spend yourself out of the difficulty. And that is what he's doing. Because what you may call the revenue of government is for lots. I'm looking for a better word. You know, you can have a monetary euphoria, a monetary euphoria. For instance, if I was a government official and you are my son or my daughter, and I used to find it difficult to give you, 200 naira. Now that $1 is 1,500, according to the government, against next year, the government has inflated the value, and I now give you 5,000 naira. That 5,000 naira is still less than the 200 naira you were demanding before.
Yes.
So to say you are making a budget of 47 trillion does not make sense, because if that budget, if you write it out for either a state governor or the Senate president, and then you cancel 3 zeros behind it because of dollar, and then divide by 5, just 3 zeros, you will see that in terms of dollar, it doesn't amount to much. It's just like somebody gave you 10,000 naira, and 1,000 naira is equal to $1. If you want to know the dollar equivalent, cancel the last 3. It is $10 he has given you. So it doesn't make
any difference.
So there's nothing to restore. Like I said, any family that is facing the kind of problem Nigeria is facing should engage in financial consolidation. In other words, you stop those things you have been doing, which you cannot do. You reduce expenditure. That is what is called financial consolidation.
Speaking of reducing expenditure, for revenue, according to the president, he said we're targeting 34.82 trillion naira in revenue to fund the budget, and then in expenditure, he's saying in the same year expenditure to be projected to 47.90 trillion, including 15.81 trillion naira for debt servicing.
Yeah,
now, how realistic are the revenue and the expenditure projection in the budget?
One indicator of the unrealisticness of that estimation is that Nigeria will produce 2 million barrels of oil per day. That is in the budget.
Right.
Is it feasible? It's not feasible, because to drill oil, you need rigs. Nigeria does not produce the rig. So to produce on land, that is maybe in a Yenagoa, Ikorabasi, Oguta, Obaro, you need a rig, and that rig is hired from abroad. Which country, which risk, which person will so risk averse that he will lend his rig to be brought to the inland wells?
So you mean there is no rig at all in Nigeria?
That is security. I mean, you don't manufacture it there. We will come to that. They hire those rigs. The ones that are working are in the deep sea, where you have the major oil companies,
Yes.
Total. They bring it, they float it to Nigeria, and then their workers live there. But even then, pirates attack them. So you find that Total Energy, for instance, instead of investing in Nigeria, they are going to Angola. Because when they apply for authorization, it takes years. If you don't go to the office to see a particular person, you don't get approval. So he said their MD spoke about it at a conference in Angola. Look at the oil companies. I think somebody is telling me that Total Energy, the one that distributes fuel in town, that they have divested. But I'm sure of Mobil. Mobil has moved out. Somebody is now owning it. That person is called 11. Texaco has gone. Is now MRS. Oando was formerly an Italian company. So you'll find that inside the country, you no longer have efficient distributors on petroleum. On inland basin, you don't have those efficient miners of oil, like Chevron. They are operating at the high sea. Now, even if they were to produce 4 million barrels per day, by the agreement that supports deep sea mining called production sharing, Nigeria cannot get 2 million barrels per day because Nigeria cannot even pay the cost of mining. So they will have to deduct their cost before telling you that this is the outstanding. Then you share it. It's but the sharing formula is in the hands of, just like you have a vehicle, you give it to somebody to drive, and in the evening come back, let us share. It's what he brings that you will share.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
Of course.
All right. I just wanted to ask, because the question is the budget truly one of restoration? Because then again, in the mouth of every Nigerian out there, what he or she wants to know, what every Nigerian wants to know is, what is the implication to my welfare, my economic welfare in Nigeria? How is this budget going to directly or indirectly affect me? How is it going to reduce the cost of hardship that I'm facing? So do you think this budget has any hope? We can trust that by 2025 or by the ending of 2025, something positive can come. Or do you think this is kind of another destruction hole on itself?
The weather has just changed into Harmattan.
Yes.
So when you see dust and air, you know that Harmattan has come. If you want to restore hope, I think one of the prominent men in the country, and Bode George also, said if the government wants to, give the people the impression that it cares, it should bring down the pump price of petrol.
Yes.
It was about 300 or something naira. Now it's anything goes.
Yes, actually.
Can they restore it to 300? Exchange rates. I've told you that $53 is the monthly wage of the minimum wage person. That type of wage, can you use, if you tell somebody in the US that you are earning $353 per month, will he write you a letter? He will not, because he knows that you cannot even post a response. The exchange rates and the pump price of petrol, if they were to return to a place where people can afford it, sometimes people in government make the wrong decisions. Excuse me. What Nigeria did was to unify petroleum prices. They unified petroleum prices in the early 70s. Now that the government wants to modify it, they say they are removing subsidy. It was not subsidy, it is the pricing mechanism. Therefore, if you want to restore hope, there are things you are going to do. If you, in Enugu here, if you go to Transekulu, there's a place they call Federal Housing. All the roads there are broken. But the government itself is also saying that they are building new houses. Why don't you build the road in the one you have already built before building new ones? How are you going to restore hope? Housing, especially urban housing, is a problem in Nigeria. One of the reasons people cannot provide enough housing in the urban areas is availability of land. But the land is there. Because if you go out, you'll be seeing billboards telling you Belinda Estate,
yes, come and buy
600 million naira per square feet. That amount that are being quoted there, for who? Is it the people who really live in Enugu? Even when the government issues its own property, you know, as an estate is allocating, you will find that the government itself does not obey the law. The law provides that, that's the Land Use Act, that there should be what is called a Land Use and Allocation Committee. Land Use and Allocation Committee. But you never hear of those people. You never hear that the governor has given this man land, this one has given this man, and then he has demolished it after the minister has given, the minister has demolished. Those are the functions of the Land Use and Allocation Committee. First, they will have to identify land, program it, and say that this size of property is available in these lots. You should apply. But if you apply, for instance, make sure that you don't have a residential plot already in this city to give other people a chance. But you don't hear such things. You don't hear it. So where is the restoration? Because if you went to hospital and say that you are having fever, and then they say you should donate blood, do they want to kill you? They should be treating those things you are suffering from.
Okay, so now let's talk about the highlight of the 2025 budget. And just like my colleague asked, human beings, we Nigerians want to know how this budget is going to impact us. Now, for defense, of course, which is the highest, defense and security, it's about 4.91 trillion naira. For infrastructure, we have 4.06 trillion naira, which, of course, we've been having a lot of power outage of collapse. Our national grid collapsing almost. I think in the past 10 years, I think they said it has collapsed 105 times or 110 times thereabouts. Then health had about 2.4 trillion naira. Education now had 3.52 trillion naira. What's your take on this? Do you think this is a well-balanced budget?
It's quite interesting. If you go to the capital budget, you will find that the Ministry of Finance, which does not produce anything, has allocated to it 873 billion. You wonder, what are they going to be doing with that? Meanwhile, petroleum sector, where you want to increase output, is allocated about 10 billion. Finance has 873 billion. While petroleum sector has about 10 billion. How is it going to work? We have a power supply problem. The government is allocating 532 billion to the power sector, less than what is allocated to finance. But you need to diversify the economy in order to earn more, because oil is no longer very productive. They said now solid minerals, we need to be solid. But what is there is about 9 billion. So, industry, you need manufacturing, you need production. The allocation to the industrial sector is about 38 billion. So, how are you going to revive the economy in order to restore hope? Companies are leaving. Good. Now, how are you going to do it? Science and technology, where you need to solve problems. What is allocated there is about 0.07 trillion, very low.
Very low, extremely.
So, but you'll find some waste pipe areas, like social welfare. They are giving it 592 because they want to be giving money to their supporters. Transportation and agriculture have much less than finance, 224 for transportation, agriculture 243. And still you want to revive the economy to make production available. And when people talk about agriculture, it's not only food. Because if you produce cotton, for instance, you can reduce the amount of okirika that people are wearing around. Engage people. See, all these dresses that we wear for ceremonies, we call borrowed from the southwest, called Ashebi.
Ashebi, yes.
If we had cotton and yarn People can design something that is good for themselves. Maybe they could have, maybe 1 yard you can just place on top of, and whatever dress you wear that thing across your shoulder to show that you identify. But look at now. I mean, go to Obeje. If you want 6 yards of any reasonable clothes, it's about 15,000. These are things that people used to buy for less than 3,000. So where is the restoration of hope? So you need to be targeting those areas to solve the existing problems. If you don't solve the existing problems, you cannot be announcing that you will be addressing a problem that people cannot see.
Some prominent people have come out to, give their own voice on what is happening. I think on the newspaper headlines today, Atiku came out to say that 13 trillion naira borrowing, that the budgets lack discipline. Do you really think, because of course, Atiku came out to say this, he's a Nigerian, but according to the newspaper headlines, he's being called an opposition. But do you really think that 13 trillion naira borrowing, it really shows that we lack the discipline of money?
That's why I say that if you go to EEDC office in Ogwe Road, that's former NEPA
office, yes.
Under the picture of their chairman, I think it's a Mekofor, there is a saying that's put there. It says, if it was your business, would you run it this way? As mean that you hire somebody to run a company for you and he's borrowing and borrowing, you are the person who will pay.
But then again, people argue that you can do without borrowing. So people actually who came on one of our interviews here insisted that borrowing is not a bad thing.
Nobody's
that countries
that,
still borrow to finance or to service
when
debt.
you are in difficulty, the first thing you do is to cut down your expenses. There are things that the government does that it can drop and allow individuals to do those things for themselves. Like, I mean, I know that people are poor, but this social welfare expenditure in which you pay money to some people, it does not help them. Because assuming that I have a bad leg and I cannot walk, what you need to do for me is to assist my wife to be working, employ my children, they will take care of me. Giving me largesse does not solve my problem, because that money has to come from somewhere. I know the World Bank and some other foreign agencies
yes,
tend to give this advice, but they are working on a different mindset. They are working with a different mindset. There's a character of the Nigerian economy that is dual. As I was coming now around Independence Avenue, I didn't see much traffic, although the schools are closed. But you'll find that many people are disappearing to the villages. So we have what you call a dual economy, not just village and town, but there are many people who work not for market. They cultivate yam, cocoa yam. They have odala on their land. They have popo, but it's not for sale.
Consumption.
It's for consumption. If you come to their house, they may even give you so much because the cost of taking it to the market is higher than what they will get. Meanwhile, there are other people who do nothing, but they are in government employment. They earn money. Sometimes they don't even come to work. So that money economy and the non-money economy is a character of Nigeria. What you need is to help people to remain where they should be. For instance, I'm telling you honestly, this minimum wage, which is paid to government workers, causes people to leave rural areas. Because if you are in the rural area and you climb a palm tree to get palm wine, at the end you get 4,000 naira. Why somebody who is doing nothing and is a gate man is coming home with 70,000 naira? So you would rather come to town and be perambulating. It's a relativity thing. But when people come to town, they suffer. They live in a house without sanitary facilities. A man and his wife and 6 children live in one room. But in their village, they may not have a better house, but they are free. They can even sweep their compound and lie there safely. But these signals government is sending about welfare give the impression that you are better off in town. But people will come here, go to town, and matters get worse. So is there a question of borrowing? You need to adjust. We have had this experience before. In 1978, when Obasanjo was military head of state, we had an oil crunch. The price of oil fell from about $40 per barrel to about $13 per barrel. What did Obasanjo do? He just cut down a lot of expenditure. Many shops that were selling Italian shirts, Italian shoes, closed because they couldn't get access to foreign exchange anymore. People were withdrawing their children from high fee paying schools like Corona in Lagos and going to public schools. But you have problem, and you are, like I said, the person who has taken 1 carton of beer and says he needs to finish the brewery so that nobody will complain about being drunk again. It's not good. It's not a good way of doing things.
Right. The budget dictates 4.06 trillion to infrastructure projects, including key highways and energy investments. But the question is, how can the government ensure that this infrastructure investment translates into economic growth and maybe improved living standards of people out there? Because then again, one point or one particular thing that everybody wants to know is how the living standard can reduce, how the hardship can go. But you've talked about the fact that the budget is already on a high rock, but we can't do anything about it. But what do you think the government should do right now to make sure that this budget translates to economic growth?
That's what we have been talking about, because the government itself proposes some objectives. Forget about the summary restoration. It says it wants to restore macroeconomic stability. Macroeconomic stability is the general economy. If you are lucky that you have money in a bank, go to the bank now, ask them to give you $20,000.
It's a problem.
They will tell you that you should see the manager. The manager should say you should see the general manager. The general manager should say you should see the MD, or come back tomorrow. When you come back tomorrow, they said, oh, that 10,000 we were giving yesterday, we are now giving 5,000. Does that constitute stability? If you went to a bookshop to price a book today, and they say it's 25,000 naira, and you have less than that, you say, okay, I will come back next week. When you come back, they say the book is no longer available. Are you getting it? Inflation is an enemy of stability. The government is doing nothing to fight inflation because its borrowing pumps money into the economy. Because when the government says, I'm going to borrow, the only place it is sure of getting money is from the central bank. And the central bank does not trade. What it does is to print. It just prints money. And that injection of money creates further inflation. Power cut. Maybe because of your signature is strong. Because the light here looks like heaven. Though I've not been there, but I hear that heaven is light.
Thank you very
If it
much.
was in my house that you came, they would have taken light about 10 times in less than 10
brought it
minutes.
back again.
Yes,
That
yes.
is a source of disruption. It doesn't make for stability. Now, he said he wants to improve the business environment. Now, what is government doing to improve the business environment? When you borrow, when the government is borrowing, it is crowding out the private sector, because any lender will like to lend to government because government will always print money and pay instead of paying to the private sector. It's crowding out. Now, government also say it wants to reduce poverty. What causes poverty? Low output and low productivity. But things are not being done to improve that. We have a GTC here. I think the government is trying to do something.
Yes.
The IMT has an industrial center. If people were getting proper training there, they don't need to look for a job. Because all these furniture people that stay on the road side, if they studied joinery at a school, they will know how to work. And they will work in a lower space, in a neat place. But all these people who stay by the road, you know, you see them using cardboard. Those who have money don't buy from them, because you see that what they are doing is bad. But the poor, like us, we go there and manage our life. So it's quite a difficult situation. So I think that answers the question, because you can't give what you don't have. The government does not have, it doesn't show that it has what it takes to address the issue. And to illustrate it, I think last year, against a lot of opposition, the government launched the Lagos Calabar
Expressway.
But I think 2 days ago, the Minister of Works said they are going to reduce the road from 10 lane to 6 lane. Does that show stability?
Not at all. Okay, so before, you are an economist, and I want to get your expert opinion on this. We've seen how things went in Nigeria for this past 12 months, how hunger and hardship became so much that the Nigerians had to protest. In your own expert opinion, what do you see 2025 being like? Do you think it's going to get worse or it's going to get better?
Repeat the last thing you said.
Do you think it's going to get worse or it's going to get better?
The prospects are not there. Because if the prospects were there, the original investors in ShopRite would not have gone. Their neighbor, I think those ones are gone completely. Unilever has gone. P&G has gone. And these are people who have greater insights into how government works. The prospects are not there. It's just not there. I don't see, you find people who are maybe building houses now, not that they know that it is better, but how for do?
All right, just before we go, I want your reaction to this. This is from our newspaper on Thursday, 19th December. Thursday, 19th December, from the Nation newspapers. The president actually said that the economy is rapidly responding to reform stimulus. In his words, we must build on the progress we have made in the past 18 months in restructuring our economy and ensuring it is strong enough to withstand the headwinds. So, and you have said that the budget, of course, everybody has commented on the budget. Looking on the long run, are you seeing something, or I don't know, it looks as if president has more prospects for us that we Nigerians are not seeing. Do you think there is prospective hope for Nigerians looking at these comments that he made?
I think the best judge of the government is what he says. He says that it's hoping that next year that inflation will come down from 34% to 15%. Any economy, the economies that grow in this world, none of them tolerate 15% inflation rate. 15%. In other words, this is a high rate of inflation. But the government says it is going to come down from 34 to 15. By what magic? Is not doable. Secondly, it says that the exchange rate will fall to 1,500 naira. I've told you where we came from, where people want restoration. Yes. But you're saying that 1,005 is still your own goal. That's the goal of the budget. 1,500 naira for a dollar. I mean, if you travel to New York now, and you went to a shop to buy Coke, you will find that if you're thinking in naira, you won't take that Coke. But the cost of that Coke includes federal taxes, state taxes, city taxes. If you remove all the taxes, it will be very, very cheap. But with that, all the taxes, you see things. You see subway, you see this, all kinds of things, lights. Somebody slap you, police will arrive. Right. Before you even say police has already come. But yeah, they just collect your money and do nothing. So the prospects from what the government aims to achieve and the way they have allocated funding to areas, does not show that the things that pain the people are what they are addressing.
All right. Right, I think this is the most we can take, I'm afraid. Thank you very much, Dr. Stanislaus Ukeje, economist and a policy scholar. Thank you for that insight into this budget.
It's my pleasure being with you. I didn't know that young people know a few things about economics.
This is our country. We must talk about it.
Well, that is good to hear that
Thank
you
you very
believe in the
much.
country.
We do.
Which
we
means
do.
if you see a plane at Kanubian, you won't enter and travel.
Not at all. Not at all.
My pleasure being with you.
Thank you
you.
very much,
Thank you.
Doc. All right, that's the most you can take for today's this
Signature
morning's
morning.
interview. Of course, but we'll be bringing you more programs, more interviews lined up for you. We'll be connecting with Abuja Studio. My name is Belinda